Hello, everyone. Welcome in to Golden Blue Dude. I'm Joey Foster. Golden Blue Dude is not going to be here right now. He's traveling up to West Virginia to get ready for the backyard brawl tomorrow. So happy backyard brawl eve to everybody. I know we have a lot of fans from across the nation that watch our show. As you know, though, we are West Virginia fans, so backyard brawl is pretty big to us. Everybody, what we're going to do today is just go over a few of the games tomorrow and Friday, and a few of the big games on Saturday. I've invited some people in to the panel. Some of them may make it in, some may not. I'm gonna bring in one of them though right now, and that's Jeff Grimm. What do you say, Jeff? What's going on today, buddy? You're muted. You're muted, Jeff.
There you go. Now, just getting excited for the games tomorrow.
Yeah, really. I know
It was
I am
nice having
too.
games Saturday.
Yeah. Um, so trying to figure out if we are live because I'm having trouble with my computer. And so I need to make sure we are live because it's telling me we're live. Yeah, we're live. There we go. Yeah, my computer's working now. So I'm going to give a little shout out to some people in chat here in a little bit. But Jeff, now you're an Alabama fan. You guys don't have a really big game this week. Um, but are you going to be watching the backyard brawl tomorrow and then flip over to the Penn State game as well when it kicks off, or what?
Yeah. Hopefully, you guys can have a big enough lead in the backyard brawl that I can just watch the rest of the Penn State and Purdue game.
Yeah, that would be fine with me if we have a big enough lead at 8 o'clock that everybody can switch over to Penn State. Hey, I tell you what, if we're ahead, but if we got a big enough lead and everybody wants to switch over and watch the Penn State game, I don't blame you a bit. That'd be great with me. So I had some exciting news today, and so good friend of mine, Coos, everybody knows him, Coos's Corner, called me up and gave me a ticket to the backyard brawl. I was going up. Of course, we have the new show, Mountaineer Legends pregame show, and that goes from 2 to 4 tomorrow. And so I was going up and just hang out with the legends. We was all going to watch the game together there at the bar. And then Coos offered me a ticket, so I'm going to go to the ball game with Coos. So really looking
Oh,
forward to it. Going to get to go to the game. So I
that is
appreciate
awesome.
Coos very much. Yeah, Coos is a good guy. I appreciate him doing that. Shout out to some people in the chat. Um, I'll do that a little bit later on because there's not too many in here right now. Maybe about 20 people. So let's go over a few games tomorrow. We'll go over a few of the small games here while we're waiting on people to come into the room with us. Let's go over a few just small ones tomorrow. Ball State and Tennessee. Um, Tennessee's favored by 35 and a half. Um, First game of the year for Tennessee, 35 and a half. You like that line?
I don't. I don't think Tennessee's going to cover. And the reason I don't think Tennessee's going to cover is I don't think they're going to want to show a whole lot tomorrow. Why would you show a whole lot knowing the next week you play Pitt?
Yeah, right, exactly. I agree. Let me do something here real quick if I can. Um, so let's talk about another game here. Louisiana Tech and Missouri. Missouri's favored by 20 in that game. Once again, we're talking first game of the year and these big lines. I don't like these big lines first game of the year.
My rule is in the beginning of the year, if there's a lot of points, I always take the points.
Yeah, that's about how I am too. As a matter of fact, that's generally when I win my money is first, second games of the year with all these high point things. So, fortunately, I don't have his address. I'm going to put hey, Jeff Webster, I'm going to give you a link to the StreamYard in the chat. Why don't you come in and join us here? Jeff Webster. Come on in here with us, Jeff. So
I do think Missouri's going
let's
to be
go back
better
to
this year, but covering a big spread like that in the beginning of the year, a lot of times coaches like to play players that don't get to play a lot just to see, kind of use it as a scrimmage after the first quarter, maybe the first half.
Right. And they're playing Louisiana Tech, and Louisiana Tech has a tendency to surprise some teams. Maybe not necessarily beat them, but can keep the games close and things. So that's one thing I would stay away from is that 20. So I would have to take Louisiana Tech and the points. I think Missouri will win the game, but I would still take the points. Another game with a really high point spread, Minnesota and New Mexico State, 36.5 point spread for Minnesota here as favorite. Minnesota is a pound and ground team. I mean, they like to keep it on the ground, and then they put them at 36.5. Sure, they could do it easily, but will they? I don't think they will. I don't think I don't believe they will even try to beat them by 36.5.
Yeah, and I agree with you because Minnesota, like you said, they pound the ball. So they're going to wear a lot of clock off, just running the ball. Now, Minnesota, a lot of people predict that they could actually win the West in the Big Ten this year. Now, I don't think they're that good. I think Wisconsin still kind of has the inside track. But, yeah, giving up that many points first game of the year, I would take the points again.
Yeah. So then we have Oklahoma State and Central Michigan. Oklahoma State is 21.5 point favorite. That if I was going to take a points on a game, that would be it. Because Oklahoma State airs it out. They'll throw the ball down the field. They'll push you down the field in a hurry. So I would take the 21.5 points there.
Yeah, that's not enough.
I would definitely lay it.
That's not enough points to go against Oklahoma State at all. I would definitely give up those points and take the win.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's talk a little bit about I won't talk about the backyard brawl right now. Let's talk about Penn State and Purdue. So Penn State is a 3.5 point favorite over Purdue. And a lot of people are saying Purdue is going to be the team this year that's is going to surprise a lot of people. What are your thoughts? Have you looked into Purdue at all?
I've looked at Purdue. The problem with Purdue is every year they're good. I mean, they're never really a terrible team. They love to upset people, but they also like to fall flat on their face. And so, their quarterback, Aiden O'Connell, being a senior, I think that helps them. I think, he threw for 3,700 yards last year. So, I mean, I think this Purdue team, they should be legit this year. And I think it's going to be a close game. And it is at home. So, I mean, that's going to favor Penn State. So, I honestly, if I was to put money on the game, I wouldn't put a lot of money on it. Just because, it could go either way. But I actually think Purdue will take it by a field goal. I really do.
Yeah. I agree. Now, Penn State, last year I was really, really, really high on Penn State. And I was really, really high on Wisconsin, too. And then Wisconsin got beat by Penn State. But Penn State turns around and loses the game. I mean, the Big Ten for me is always hard to figure out. I always say like Michigan last year, I didn't have them. I would have never dreamed them winning the Big Ten last year. I didn't have them nowhere near it. So they totally shocked me last year. I'm going to let chat know. I put the StreamYard link in the chat if anybody wants to join in with us. And come in here and let's talk about a few games. We'll talk about some predictions. Talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. We'll just sit and have some fun. Like I said, Golden Blue Dude, he's traveling up here to West Virginia. He lives in South Carolina, so he's traveling up here to West Virginia to go up to Pittsburgh in the morning for the backyard brawl. So he's going to try to go live with everybody maybe later on, but he's not sure if he's going to get to because it's a pretty long trip to West Virginia from South Carolina.
The other thing with Penn State, I would say, is you want to play them early in the year because if you watch Penn State, they struggle early for some reason. It takes them a couple, 2-3 weeks to get going. Like last year, I know the third game was against Auburn and they beat Auburn, but they even kind of struggled in that game. So I think,
Yeah.
Purdue getting Penn State at home, first game of the year, I think that favors Purdue.
J-Dub, can you turn your camera on for me for just a second? Thank you, J-Dub. All right, and bring J-Dub in here with us. What's
Phil
going
knows
on, J-Dub?
more about Purdue.
How's it going, gentlemen? I think Penn State will beat Purdue. I think I really like Purdue's quarterback, but he's lost his two main weapons, and I think that's going to come back to haunt him. I think McConnell will still have a great year, and I think Purdue can win 7 or 8 games. But I'm not one of these people that look at Purdue and go, "Oh, well, they could be a 10-win team." That's not happening. And Penn State, I think, just if you're Penn State, if you're a Penn State loyalist, if you're a Penn State fan, you've had to spend the whole last year listening to everybody talk about Michigan and Michigan State and now how good Ohio State is. And you got to feel like you're like the left out cousin in the East, that nobody's really talking about you. So maybe you got just a little bit on your plate, and that might be enough to carry them.
Now, a lot of people, especially Penn State fans, I hear it all the time that they don't like Franklin as coach. I think Franklin's a great coach myself, but Jeff made a good point. They start out kind of slow and sluggish every year. That has to be on the coach if they're starting out slow.
Yes, but obviously the administration likes him because last November they gave him 10 years and $85 million plus an extra $10 million in life insurance.
Right. And I think he's a great coach.
He's not going anywhere for a long time.
And look what happened in Nebraska. They got mad at Pelini, and he was winning 9 games a year, so they got rid of him, and look where they're at. You're Penn State. I know under, Joe Pa that you won a couple titles and you think that you should be in there every year. But when you got a coach winning 9-10 games a year, it's hard to get rid of that guy. I don't care what program you're at. Hell, J-Dub, you'll tell them. When we lost Bear Bryant, we'd have took 9-3. When we lost Stallings, we'd have took 9-3.
Oh yeah, you betcha.
It's nice winning titles, but it sucks when you're chasing coaches.
Right, and
yeah.
The thing about, and I have been a big critic of Franklin. I call him, the nickname I give to Andy Reid of the Chiefs, I call him small game, because that's the games he wins. He wins the small games. He doesn't win the big one. But Franklin apparently, from all evidence, is a man of character. His kids are graduating. Their graduation rate has gone up. You don't ever hear about a Penn State kid getting in trouble. He's got the program running clean, which that was Bill O'Brien that cleaned it up. But Franklin came in and he's kept it going, and that's what Penn State needs. They don't need any kind of nothing, no funny business. And, the Penn State people have to understand. And I said this in a stream the other night. It might have been in this stream. Of all the fan bases I've ever encountered that were on the road at a game, Penn State is my favorite. They are my favorite fan base. I've seen them at Iowa a couple of times. I saw them at Alabama a couple of times back in the 80s, both at Legion Field and at Bryant-Denny. One time in a driving rainstorm in a 6-3 game, or was it 6? I can't remember. It was 6 to something, and a week later, the Tuscaloosa News and the Crimson White were full of letters from people in Penn State saying, Alabama's now our second favorite team. We were treated so well. We love you. We respect you. But I really like the Penn State fans, but they've got to understand those championships came when they were an East Coast independent and they were playing weak East and Atlantic Coast teams. When they were playing Virginias and Syracuses and Pitts and every now and then Virginia Tech or somebody like that. They were beating nobodies and they were getting run up, and they'd get to like 11-0, and they'd get in the bowl game, and maybe they'd win it. That's how they won their titles. Once they got stuck in the Big Ten, where they had to come out and play every week, getting your head beat in, it's been a different story. When they were an independent and had some of that soft East Coast schedule, they were a lot more successful program. And I'm not trying to be negative to Penn State because I like them.
See, I like Penn State too,
Well,
but I kind of look at Penn State kind of like an Iowa or a Wisconsin. You keep your teams in the bowl every year, and every 3,
Right.
4, maybe 5 years, you make the Rose Bowl or an Orange Bowl. That
Right.
should excite you. I mean, that's what Iowa does. The fans.
That's right.
As long as you're taking us to a good bowl game, and once in a while we're going to a big bowl game, we're happy. And that's kind of how I look at Penn State should feel.
Yeah, Iowa is
I
your
like
eight. Iowa is your 8-4 team, and every now and then, about every 4 years, they're going to beat somebody they're not supposed to beat, and they're going to go 10-2, and they're going to land in a New Year's Six bowl or a nice bowl. And the most Hawkeye fans, as difficult as I find them to deal with usually, understand that, and they understand that's who we are. Would we like to be better? Yes, but we're not going to attract the kind of people to Iowa City that are going to go to Columbus, are going to go to Los Angeles, going to go to Tuscaloosa. We're just not going to get those kind of kids here. So let's be 8-4 and 9-3, and not be 3-8. So they've got an idea of who they are. That's the problem with Nebraska. Nebraska got, like you mentioned, Jeff, they got rid of Pelini at 9-0 because Nebraska's got a big problem. They're not as good as they think they are, and more importantly, they're nowhere near as good as they believe they ought to be.
Yeah, and now I want to say something about Penn State fans. We used to play Penn State every year back in the 80s, and Penn State was a dominated team back then. And now when we joined the Big East, Penn State tried to join the Big East. A lot of people don't know this, but they were held out by a team like Villanova and Georgetown. They didn't want Penn State in the Big East, so they wasn't welcome in. So they went on and joined the Big Ten. But I've always liked the fans, but I've always hated the team. I used to have a bumper sticker that said my 2 favorite teams are West Virginia and whoever's playing Penn State, simply because we couldn't beat them. I mean, we just could not beat them. And, we finally started beating them in the mid-'80s, and then kind of probably from 85 to 95, we probably won more than we lost against them. But so let's go on to the next game, because I want to try to hit a lot of these games today. So let's talk about the backyard brawl for a second, and West Virginia and Pitt. The line is set at 7.5 in favor of Pittsburgh. So ESPN and Vivid Seats have announced that 75% of all ticket sales have been sold to West Virginia fans. So 75% of that stadium, but you got to figure the student section is going to take 10,000 seats anyway. So it's going to at least be 50-50. So there's not going to be really a home field advantage here in this game. So I bet you that 7.5 could easily just be 3 had the Vegas lines known that was going to happen. Packer 910, can you turn your camera on for me? Give me a thumbs up, man. Thank you, sir. Thanks for coming in. But I'd like to get y'all's thought on the backyard brawl and the 7.5 point spread.
I had the mic.
Jeff Grimm, what do you think, man?
I would take the points personally. I think it's going to be a good game, and I don't think it's going to be decided until probably late in the third quarter, fourth quarter. But I do think with all the people Pittsburgh lost, and I mean, everybody talks about the big Pitt losses, but, they also lost Cam Bright, their linebacker, who was, the quarterback of the defense. They also lost their tight end. So you lose your tight end, your best wide receiver, and your quarterback. That's going to hurt you the next year. I do think the lines will keep them in it, but I just think with everything that they lost after 3 quarters, I think that West Virginia will pull it out. So I would personally take the points.
Now I'm gonna hit on these super chats real quick. Soldier Stories, thank you for the $2 super chat. He reminds everybody that there will be a pregame on Golden Blue Dude's channel and a postgame on Soldier Stories channel. And Soldier, if somebody will just type Soldier into the chat down there, Nightbot will give you a link to Soldier's channel. So be sure and sub that channel up. John Waffle H2P, thank you for the $4.99 super chat. He says you don't have to worry. Pitt is the king of Pennsylvania this year. I don't think Pitt could beat Penn State, but that's my thought. And also to Jeffrey Foster, thank you for the $4.99 super chat. He says West Virginia 42-24, country roads take me home to the place I belong. West Virginia Mountain Mama, take me home, country roads. I'll take that 42-24, but I don't see us scoring 42 points against that Pitt defense. I would say that if we can score 30. But here's the thing about it. I've seen the stat the other day that West Virginia, when they score 30, is like 80% more likely to win the game when they score 30, and like 95% more likely if they score 40. So if we could score 30 points, there's a good chance we could win that game. But that defense is going to be stout for them, and our defense is going to be stout as well. So, but thank you everybody for the super chats. Appreciate it. Packer 910, what do you think about the backyard brawl?
I think it's going to be close. I think if you really think West Virginia's going to win, you got to bet the under. It's going to have to be a defensive struggle. I think if the over hits, West Virginia's going to have trouble keeping pace with Pitt against that Pitt defense.
Yeah, I've had some trouble figuring out the defense rank last year because one place tells me West Virginia was 45th, Pitt was 42nd total defense. Another place tells me that Pitt was 37th in total defense and West Virginia was 32nd in total defense. And both of them are pretty legit places. I think one was ESPN, another was CBS, or maybe it was ABC. I mean, these were legit stats. These weren't somebody on Twitter that I got that from. So I can't figure out. But bottom line, both defenses are going to be pretty stout. J-Dub, what do you think, man?
I think we've got a low-scoring game here. I see this game being something like 23-20, 24-17, something like that. I think if you went position by position, even with the losses, because of their defense, you might give a slight edge to Pitt. But I just think the emotions are running in West Virginia's favor. They'll be a little more excited because they've got JT Daniels, who I think is a bust. But I just think that late in the game, something will happen. There'll be a turnover. Look, this is one of those games, these rivalry games. Jeff Grimm will know this from the long history of the Iron Bowl. Dumb things happen in rivalry games. The ball hits a pebble and shoots 86 degrees to the left and rolls off somebody's foot, and somebody lands on it and recovers it. Crazy things happen, and I think a late score lifts West Virginia, and the headline is Golden Blue Dude taken to hospital because he hyperventilates. He's so excited.
Soldier, thank you again for the $2 super chat. And he says, Joey, we aren't doing the post game. I thought GBD was. You're right, Soldier Stories. Sorry about that. But you're going to be going live. So just be sure and hit the bell notification on Soldier Stories channel so that you'll know when he goes live with his pre-game analysis.
These rivalries, you never know what can be a deciding factor. Last year, you had Iowa and Iowa State, and the deciding factor in that game was the fact that five times, Iowa's punter pinned the Cyclones inside their own 10-yard line. Imagine that, having to start 5 drives from inside your own 10. So I'm not saying that's going to happen in this game, but I'm just saying those kind of things, the odd duck tends to swim in the pond of these rivalry games pretty often.
Yeah. So to talk about rivalry games, and especially this game here between West Virginia and Pitt, in 2007, West Virginia was number 2 in the country. They were 24.5 point favorites over Pitt, and Pitt came into Morgantown and beat us 13-9. In 2009, we were ranked number 9 in the country, I believe, and Pitt was unranked again, and they came in, and we had to kick a last second field goal, walk off field goal, to beat Pitt, and that's just how these rivalry games go. It don't matter where you're ranked in the rivalry games. It don't matter if you're number 1 in the country and you're blowing all your competition out. When you go up against that rival, that there's always a battle there, and the players play a little bit harder, and they put that chin strap on a little bit tighter, and get in there and hit you and bust you in the mouth.
You don't have to tell the two Jeffs that. we know
Yeah.
we know all about that.
Yeah, rivalry games suck. I mean, it don't matter record. It don't matter, they suck. I mean, because that other team is out to get you. And like J-Dub said, it's always something you don't even think about, something really stupid that makes the biggest deciding factor in the game. Now, for me, though, the one thing with Pitt last year was they had the second most 20-yard plus plays. So they averaged over 6 20-yard plays a game. So as long as West Virginia can limit those, I do think it will help favor West Virginia.
Yeah, but you got to remember, Jordan Addison had 5 of those every day, daggone play. So every game. So that's the thing about it. They lost Jordan Addison. They lost Kenny Pickett, the man that's throwing that ball. So they lost a lot of production on offense. I'm not saying they're going to be bad offensively at all. I'm just saying that you can't lose that much production and continue what you had last year. It's just not going to happen. And West Virginia, we've got a new quarterback too. So, right. Are we going to struggle a little bit as well? I mean, you never know. I hope not. He's experienced enough that he shouldn't struggle. He should know the offense because Graham Harrell was his coach at USC. So there shouldn't be a lot of learning curve for JT Daniels at West Virginia. So now let's go down to another game, Big Ten game on Friday night, Indiana and Illinois. Indiana, a 3-point favorite. Indiana and Illinois are just a couple of teams that I very seldom in any given season will watch one game of theirs. Now I look at scores, and keep up with that, but I just don't watch them. I know J-Dub taking pictures for Iowa up there has to keep up with all that. Jeff, what do you think about Indiana and Illinois?
Well,
I think Illinois. Oh, I'm sorry, J-Dub. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Jeff. Go ahead.
Indiana had kind of turned it around a little bit, and they were kind of making it. And then last year, they really fell on their face. I do think the one thing that favors Illinois is they did play last week. So, I mean, they already got one game under their belt. So in a game like this where it's going to be really close, I think that extra game is going to come in and help Illinois. And I do think Bielema is going to get Illinois up for this game. I would take Illinois. I would take the points, and I would take Illinois. I think Illinois wins. I think it's going to be probably a 7 to 10 point win for Illinois. I really believe that.
I already bet Illinois. I already bet Illinois on the money line. I believe in Brett Bielema. He didn't do a whole lot at Arkansas, but he knows how to win Big Ten games. And I think Indiana in the last few years, I think a lot of that was smoke and mirrors and, Michael Penix ad-libbing, and they don't even have him anymore. I think Illinois dominates the ball game. I don't know what the final score will be, but I think statistically and I test, Illinois dominates Indiana.
And Bielema's problem at Arkansas was you're facing Alabama, you're facing LSU. We got defensive linemen who can run down those running backs. So, I mean, he brought in a system to the SEC that really wasn't favorable to go against the SEC.
Correct.
He should have stayed in the Big Ten.
He knows how to win Big Ten games.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I remember Brett Bielema when he was a smart-ass defensive tackle for the Hawkeyes. As a native of Springfield, I'll just say, we're loyal to you, Illinois, with hearts orange and blue, Illinois. I think the Illini are going 6-6 this year. I think they're going to surprise some people. I think Bielema will do enough to make Illinois the Iowa light of the Big Ten West. They'll be the team that every year is right on the edge of bowl eligibility, which they have not been. They've been 3 wins, 4 wins, not close to being a bowl. I think Bielema can keep, and where Lovie Smith was, he was maintaining 6 and 7 wins in Champaign. And if you do it right, you can win 6 or 7 games in Champaign based on who you play. Now, the one thing that Illinois does have going for them is they have a pretty good offensive line. We saw that last year in the 9 overtime win at Penn State, when Illinois didn't wear down and they wore Penn State down. And then Illinois, of course, Wyoming is nothing. But I think the Illini are not a great team, but they're a good team, and they're a better team than Indiana. And I would take the Illini by a touchdown here.
Now, there's a
And
game
they'll get somebody this year. They're going to be one of those teams that they're going to get Minnesota, or a couple of years ago they got Wisconsin when Wisconsin was number 3 in the country, and they beat them in Memorial Stadium. One of these teams, Illinois is going to get one of these teams this year.
What about like Penn State last year when they took them to what was that 3 or 4 overtime?
9.
Oh, they beat
yeah, that's
9.
right.
They beat
Penn State because Penn State's running game was so pitiful they couldn't get a 2-point conversion.
Yeah.
Yep.
They beat Penn State in Happy Valley.
Yeah.
You know,
now,
so
I want to be sure and get through all these games. So I'm sorry I'm
Okay.
interrupting you, but there's another game I want to talk about too. That's all right. So a few years back, Old Dominion beat Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech was ranked at the time. Now Virginia Tech's not supposed to have a very good team this year. They've had a lot of attrition the last couple of years. So they're going to Old Dominion, and they're 7.5-point favorites. Virginia Tech is. I think they need to be on upset alert because with the new coaching staff, all the attrition that Virginia Tech's had, and you know, can they bounce back? Are they going to start bouncing back this year? I don't see it for Virginia Tech, so I think they better watch out for Old Dominion.
Yeah, I don't have them with a winning record this year. I know they went 6 and 7 last year, but I don't see with their schedule. They might be able to beat Old Dominion, but I don't know. I don't see them winning. I really don't.
I don't
Oh.
know a lot about Pry. I'm just not up to speed on him, but I think they've lost too much through the transfer portal with people getting mad and leaving. I think they'll beat Old Dominion. I don't know if they'll cover, but I really don't think they have a positive season, especially with Virginia Tech fan base expectations.
ODU, if I'm not mistaken, ODU has been one of the better small division schools the past couple of years. They've had some decent records and have gone fairly far in the playoffs, if I'm not mistaken.
Them and James Madison both.
Yes, I think they could. I think they could very well give Virginia Tech a game here because I do think the Hokies are wobbling a little bit right now.
Yeah, I agree. Now, there's a couple of other games on Friday night, and there's no need to touch and base on them. Let's talk about a few games on Saturday. A game that I'm looking forward to this weekend more than any other game, and that's Utah going on the road to face Florida. And Utah's a 3-point favorite. And, I think if this game was played in Florida, I probably wouldn't even watch it played in Utah, I probably wouldn't even watch it because I think Utah would run away with it. But going to Florida into the swamp, this is going to be a game to watch. So I have Utah winning. And that 3 points though, that would even scare me. I could see him winning 31-30. To be honest with you,
I think Florida's going to be a lot better this year. Their coach is going to have them playing a lot better. Playing in the swamp is going to be an advantage for Florida. And also, I think the humidity, the first game, the humidity is going to help them. But I do believe that Utah does sneak out a 3, maybe a 4-point win.
And I'm basing my thing just purely on a guess here. I think Utah is a very quality opponent. I really do. I think they're a good team and they're well coached. And the one thing that, if you watch Utah play or you pay attention to the team, they usually do not hurt themselves. When they lose, you have to beat them. They don't self-destruct. But I think I just have a gut feeling that Florida is not as down as everyone thinks they are. And an SEC school at home, it's a gut feeling. It was not surprised at all if Utah goes in and wins by 10 points. I just think Florida somehow sneaks one out.
It's hard winning in the swamp. It is. People don't understand.
Yeah.
oh, it is.
I think Utah wins and covers. I think just because they're Utah and because they're in the Pac-12, I think a lot of people sell them short and they're not good enough to compete in an SEC stadium. And, I just gut feeling Utah covers and wins. I don't see it being that tight of a ball game, nail biter type ball game.
So Golden Blue Dude says he has Florida with the upset. And I could see that. I mean, it really could.
Oh, I could too.
I mean, first week, nobody's played anybody in that, neither one of them have played a game. It very well could be an upset. If I was going to risk my money, it would be on Utah laying the points.
And I think last year with Utah losing to Ohio State in the Rose Bowl, I think that makes them a little hungry. And I think they kind of got a chip on their shoulder, especially with conference realignment up in the air. I think they got something to prove this year, and they want to prove to the Big Ten and that, that they can compete wherever they go.
Yeah. Another game. Notre Dame is a 17-point underdog going on the road into the shoe to take on Ohio State. I agree Ohio State's going to win this game. I don't agree with a 17-point spread. That's me.
Oh, no, I think Notre Dame keeps it close.
Yeah, because Ohio State, last year, Oregon kind of took them for Oregon had, 360 yards on the ground against Ohio State last year. And Notre Dame can run the ball a little bit better than Oregon, in case anybody hasn't noticed. So I have to take Notre Dame keeping this game a little bit closer than that. I think Ohio State wins, but I don't see them winning by 17.
Well, I don't see Ohio State giving up 360 yards on the ground again. They brought in the defensive coordinator from Oklahoma State. Was his name Knowles from Oklahoma State? I don't think there'll be a world beater defense, but I think Ohio State's defense in his first year will be much improved. But I think Notre Dame has enough talent and enough defensive talent to keep it within 17 points.
Yeah, I would definitely take the points. The problem I have with Ohio State, and I know you just said they brought in a new coach, Ohio State hasn't had a defense in a long time. They really haven't. They're world beaters on offense. They can really put up
a la Oklahoma.
But that defense does not stop very many people. So I look at this being a 7 to 10 point game. I don't know that Notre Dame is, I don't think Notre Dame's going to beat them. But I think because of Ohio State's defense, it's going to keep Notre Dame into the game. And I definitely would take the points.
Golden Blue Dude says he disagrees with us and says Ohio State's weakness was defense last year, and they got Knowles. I have the Buckeyes by 20 plus.
Well, they might have Knowles, but they got the same talent they had last year, and you can't coach up that talent difference in one season. I think eventually, if they hang on to Knowles and don't let him get away as a head coach at another program, that they'll turn that defense around and make it a world beater defense like Oklahoma State had. But you don't do that in one season with the same talent you had last year.
No, and technically they only have – I know that it shows 5 returning starters on defense, but the starting team is only 3. So, I mean – and that defense wasn't that good last year. And if you only got 3 coming back, Nick Saban couldn't go there and coach their defense and make them that much better in 1 year.
Hey, Dub, what are your thoughts?
Well, I just don't think Notre Dame has the offensive firepower. I like Michael Mayer. I think he's the best tight end in the country. Pardon me, Brock Bowers. I think Mayer is the better of the two. I'm just not convinced Notre Dame can put up enough points. And I could see Ohio State blowing this thing open. I really could. I don't think so. If I had to put $1 on the game, I'm taking the under. I don't think Ohio State will cover. But the least surprised I would be is to see Ohio State win by 3 scores. I'm not sold on Notre Dame this year. I looked at Notre Dame's schedule. I had them 8-4 and changed my mind and moved them to 9-3. And this is definitely one of those 3.
Slim Shady Canes, can you come up just a second for me?
The one thing with Notre Dame, though, is they got a good enough line. I think they can run the ball just enough to shorten the game. So that way Ohio State,
right,
they can take away a possession or two to keep it, definitely under the 17 points.
That's certainly what they're going to try. I mean, it's no secret. That's what they'll try.
Well, I mean, that's the best way.
I would love it. I would love Notre Dame to win, but I just don't see it happening.
No.
Well, the best way to compete with an explosive offensive team is to shorten the game, limit their possessions, if you keep the offense on the sideline, they can't score from there.
Well, the reason
All right, we got Tim and Slim Shady in here now.
I was listening to y'all talk about Ohio. You're fine. I was listening to y'all talk about Ohio State's defense, and I agree he's not going to completely turn that defense around in 1 year, but I think you're selling them short of what they're going to be because it's not as if there's no talent on that defense.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out in this conversation. You guys remember they got 2 huge defensive ends, I think. I mean, one's defensive end, one's a rush end, and Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau. I don't know how to pronounce his name. Those guys were legit. Everybody on the planet wanted those guys, and they were freshmen next year. And everyone knows linemen. You need. I don't care how great you are at your local high school. It's going to take a while to get up to the college game. Those kids were probably on skates a bit. They probably didn't know what they were doing, just on raw talent. But they had a year to beef up. Knowles, I'm sure it's hard to pick up the system, but he's going to have those guys ready to some capacity. I think that their defense is going to surprise. But that said, Notre Dame has a hell of an offensive line. Just one of those every 3 year. It's like, the stars align for Notre Dame offensive lines where they have like a couple All-Americans. They're going to be tough. They're going to be road graders. And how do you slow down an offense like Ohio State? You hold on to the ball. You go on 8-minute drives, right? You run down their defense to the second half. They're gassed. I don't know if Ohio State can stop the run. I think they win comfortably. If they can't, you might be looking at something like Oregon last year. So it'll be interesting to see if those young freshmen make that sophomore leap, and if Knowles can get the guys up to speed in time.
So Tim, do you take Notre Dame in the points? It's 17 point. They're 17-point underdog.
I think 17 is a great number because from what I'm saying is there's a lot of ifs and buts, right? For my scenario to play out. I do think that Ohio State is awesome offensively, just going to be hard to stop. At the same time, though, I do think that that offensive line is going to be sick. Tyree's a great back, and Mayer, I mean, my God, that guy's he's probably Mayer. I don't care how the game goes. Mayer's probably have about 8 catches for about a 125 and a touchdown or 2. So I mean, he's gonna eat. And if they can get Tyree in the running game going, I think that that Ohio State's gonna be in a fist fight for sure. So
plus, if Notre Dame can have just 3 drives, if they can have 3 5 to 8 minute drives, that's going to take 10 to 14 points off the board for Ohio State.
I think, but flip side of that, if Knowles can get that defense going and they create a couple turnovers, this could turn into a runaway freight train very quickly.
For sure. I mean, I think we're assuming any underdog, anytime you're an underdog going, away on the road, you better at least not lose the turnover battle, right? I mean, I think that's just an axiom. If you're going to be an underdog on the road to a top 3 team, you sure as hell better not turn the ball over. Yeah, so they got to play clean football. They got the wild card, I would say, would probably be Buckner. Yeah, I mean, we don't know how this kid's going to play, and I can't remember. It was Will or someone said, "Hey, look, one of the bonuses is they do have is Knowles hasn't seen this kid, doesn't know the tendencies, doesn't know anything, so it's a wild card situation with the quarterback." And again, just like Gronkowski, a great receiving tight end can make a lot of quarterbacks look really, really good. Not saying that Tom Brady, but I'm saying, if you have that guy, it sure as heck on those. Remember when Brady didn't have Gronkowski? How did that offense run? So now imagine you have an offense with a guy, because I do believe, I remember Gronkowski at Arizona, and Mayer reminds me a lot of that guy in college. So it should be an interesting game.
Well, and the other thing I think you look at is going to play a big role too is special teams. In a game like this, when you got to keep it down, you got to punt that ball, you better pin them deep.
Yeah. Now, a team that last year went into the shoe and upset Ohio State was Oregon. Now they're going to go on the road again to take on Georgia, and once again, Oregon, this is a 17-point spread too. Georgia favored by 17. How does everybody see that game, Jeff Grimm?
Again, I'll take the points. I know it's supposed to be a neutral field, but let's face it, that's home court for Georgia. Georgia does struggle in the Superdome, but usually it's because they play Alabama there. I don't think that Georgia's defense it's going to drop. And I mean, it's going to be a good drop, but I think with the offense picking up, I think that they're going to do well in this game, but I don't think they're going to pull away with it. I think this will be a close game. I really do.
Yeah. J-Dub, what do you think?
Well, I think, echoing what Jeff said, the fact that it's not Alabama, but they're playing in Atlanta is good news for Georgia. I also think Georgia, this will be the first time the fans get to see them. The first time the team gets to come out, gets introduced as the national champions. I think there'll be a lot of emotion early in Georgia's favor, and Oregon just needs to hang on in the first quarter and not let the game get away from them right off the bat. I think Georgia wins. I do not think they'll cover, but I think they'll win. To me, the Achilles heel for Georgia this year is going to be somebody with good cover linebackers is going to tell Georgia, we're taking away the 8 to 15-yard tight end, and you have to go over the top to beat us. And Stetson Bennett, you're not good enough to go over the top because you don't have the weapons anymore. Your best over-the-top weapon is wearing a crimson helmet this year. I think that's what's going to keep Georgia from repeating. But I do think they'll beat Oregon. I don't think it'll be by 17, unless they just come out of the gate and they're just absolutely geeked and on their hair's on fire, and that could happen.
So Golden Blue Dude says, I think Oregon scares Georgia. Give me the points. Tim, you got any thoughts on this game? Sorry, guys. I'm having some trouble with my computer here.
He's muted. He might have stepped away.
Tim, you're muted. He may not know he's muted. He might have stepped away. Slim Shady.
As much as it pains me, I have to agree with Jeff. I think you need to double cover Brock Bowers all night and take away the middle of the field and tell Stetson Bennett, beat me outside the numbers. And I think that's probably going to be Dan Lanning's plan going into that game, having practiced against that offense all last year and the year before. So, and I would agree. I think Georgia wins. I don't see them really in danger of losing it, but I don't think they win by 17.
And you guys, sorry, yeah, I have COVID brain going. I couldn't figure out. I forgot that the mute button's on the way on the bottom. Sorry. Remember though, that works both ways, right? I mean, of course, Lanning's gonna be familiar with the Georgia offense, but that Georgia offense is gonna be familiar with that Lanning defense. So it's gonna work both ways. I think that might be a wash. And again, when you have teams like Alabama, or back in the day USC, Pete Carroll, or right now you have with like Ohio State, you lose a bunch of guys to the NFL, but you're just reloading these dudes. So I mean, everyone keeps pointing to, there's a lot of turnover in Georgia. Those guys were saying on the bench last year for Georgia would have started probably the rest of the country. So it's not like a situation where their talent's going to drop off too much. I just don't think there's too much. It's too much to ask of a brand new coaching staff to go in and beat the defending national champions. I think I would go ahead and lay those points.
I would agree that it would be a wash, offense and defense, if it was anybody but Stetson Bennett taking snaps.
We have a couple of new ones joining us in here. We have Shooter Tex. Thanks for coming in. And then we have the man himself, Mr. Traveling Fools, who says Miami is going 172-0 this year.
Take it to the bank.
What's going on? So we're running down some of these games. Can I get some of that? We're running down a few of these games, and right now we're talking about Oregon and Georgia, and Georgia's being a 17-point favorite.
Joey, I think Georgia covers. I think Georgia covers, and Lanning being familiar with Georgia's offense and knowing about Brock Bowers and doubling the tight end across the middle. It's kind of back in the day when Larry Bird played for the Celtics. He could come down and tell the guy guarding him exactly where he was going and what he was going to do, and the guy couldn't stop him. And you can want to double cover and jam the middle, but if you don't have the athletes to do it, you can't get it done. And I'm not touching that game, but if I was, like somebody said, going to bet $1, I would lay those points with Georgia.
Here's how I look at this game. I have to look at this game like this. Oregon plays in the Pac-12. There is no one in the Pac-12 with the power that they're going to play against Georgia, any kind of SEC team. I realize they went into the shoe last year and upset Ohio State, but that's a Big Ten team, and there's just like a different level when you're going up against an SEC school like Georgia or Alabama or somebody. I'm not saying they'll cover the point spread. I would probably take the points myself, but
Joey,
Georgia, they're not going to beat Georgia.
Joey, let me push back on that, because one thing that in Oregon, what Mario Cristobal did when he came to Oregon, he says, "I'm going to build an SEC team here in the Pac-12," and he did, and he did it on the lines, and he was pulling in 5-star offensive tackles. And he was pulling in 5-star defensive edge rushers and defensive ends. So I got to push back on you. And they have a couple. They have Sewell and a Flo, two guys that everybody in the country, including every SEC school, recruited, and they landed them. So I got to push back on you. I would say that the front seven. I don't know if it's as strong. The defensive line is as strong as it was this year, but that offensive line is full of veteran dudes. They were handpicked by Mario Cristobal and Mirabal, the offensive line coach. Those dudes are tough, and I disagree with you that they're not a typical Pac-12 front seven or defensive line or offensive line.
Yeah, I wouldn't take. I don't know that I would take the points or not. I do think Georgia's going to win, but to be honest with you, Tim, that Oregon team was good, especially they were really good, but I mean, they went up against Utah, lost twice. They went up against Oklahoma, third best team in the Big 12. That's not even an SEC team. That's, Big 12, which is not terrible. And they, look, they had a defense. They did. I agree with you there. And they were building something. Cristobal's gone. The staff is pretty well gone. So you got a whole new deal in Oregon. It's a bag of cats. I mean, you got a whole new coaching staff at Oregon. You got a whole bunch of new players, or sort of new players at Georgia. I think I'd have to give the edge to Georgia. I just don't know if they're going to cover, but they're going to win, I think.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And I said I think they will cover, if you remember. And I said the reason why they will cover is because of the turnover of the staff. So I'm fully on board. I was just pushing back on Joey about the personnel they have. Now, will that personnel be put in position to be successful? That's probably our question mark.
Yeah, coaching.
Well, and I'll push back with this. I mean, that same exact argument could be made for what some people are saying is going to be a 9-3 Notre Dame team. I mean, for all we know, Marcus Freeman, and chances are he will come out and fall flat on his face this year.
Well, but remember, that staff stayed in place.
Yeah.
Which was kind of telling them. I mean, I'm not the biggest Brian Kelly guy, but nobody, I think one coach maybe followed him to LSU. Freeman was able to keep pretty much the entire staff intact. So when it comes to scheming, when it comes to coaching and continuity, actually the Irish will be able to keep that.
On that note, did y'all see the report today that Fickle turned down USC because he heard that Notre Dame was going to come available, and then Swarbrick, to save money because he knew what kind of contract Fickle would demand, hired from within and promoted Freeman? If Freeman does come out and fall on his face, that's going to splash hard on Swarbrick.
Well,
I don't see Freeman falling flat. I don't think he'll fall. I think Notre Dame is set up really well, and I think he's going to do really well there.
Yeah,
he sure is recruiting right.
Well, I mean, that's all relative.
Traveling Fools, I know you're a Miami fan and stuff, but are you going to watch a little bit of that Oregon-Georgia game?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I'll have that on the other TV. I'm sure they're at the same time, right?
I believe so.
I am not sure.
Is that a 3:30 game?
Yeah, they're both 3:30.
Yeah, they're both 3:30. Yeah, I'll have them both on for sure.
You have a thought on that game?
I mean, fingers crossed. Go Ducks. You know, as a fellow Duck fan, I gotta stick to the Ducks.
the Miami Ducks, aren't you?
Yeah. Oh yeah. We us Ducks got to stick together. Duck the dogs.
Hey, shoot or text. Can Texas get by Louisiana Monroe this week?
God only knows. I mean, I think they should. I mean, good God, you can talk about talent. They've got all the talent in the world to beat. Shoot, they could go toe-to-toe talent-wise with Alabama this year. They're not going to win, but, so yeah, ULM, I mean, that should be a cakewalk. But this is Texas. And if anybody has just snatched defeat out of the jaws of victory, it's Texas. And I have, unfortunately, look, I'm a Baylor guy. But at the same time, I hate getting embarrassed by Texas for them to be an embarrassment for the state. I mean, some of the best players in the country are going to this school, and they just turn out disappointment after disappointment. So part of me wants them to win, and have a winning season until they face us. But man, they just coach after coach, it doesn't matter. They just seem to disappoint all over the place. They'll win, but I hate to say they're probably going to make some foolish mistakes and get, somebody's going to bust a 70-yard run or a throw for, Louisiana, and it's going to look embarrassing as hell. But, God,
you're 37.5-point favorite.
Well, they're not going to cover. How about that?
I'll take the points.
Yeah, I'll take the points on that one.
Now, Shooter, being down in Texas, how embarrassed is Texas that Allen, Texas, the high school team, got beat by a California team pretty bad at home?
That's the one thing about it. Allen is usually a pretty good school, but it's not one of the top 10. I mean, it's a good school, but California has some stuff. Sorry,
but Allen has what, $100 million facility? I mean,
yeah,
their facility is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, but honestly, that's not that uncommon in Texas.
Oh yeah, no.
Yeah, we are a little bit nutty about football around here.
If I think right, that was Tim's team that actually went in there and won.
Honestly, I wasn't even paying attention to Allen this year. I was actually watching a local game, which was Judson versus Johnson in the Alamo Dome. And that one went overtime. That was a hell of a game. And that was, for that district of, 5A, 6A, I think it's 6A. That was a pretty good game. I didn't see the Allen game. I didn't really pay attention to it. But, high school football is ramping up right now. So it'll be fun.
So a few of you wasn't in here when we was talking about the backyard brawl, and I want to get y'all's thoughts on this game. So Traveling Fools Pitt's a 7.5-point favorite over West Virginia. The game's at Heinz Field, but it's been announced that 75% of all the ticket sales have been West Virginia fans. So if you figure their student body will take about 10,000 seats, it might end up being a 50-50 fan crowd. So not a lot of home field advantage there for Pitt. What are your thoughts on the backyard brawl, Traveling Fools?
Now, if I'm not mistaken, that game's tomorrow night, right?
Right, tomorrow night, 7:00.
Yes. So my thoughts is I can't wait to watch it. I really don't think we're gonna know until halfway through the second quarter or anything about either team. I mean, I think they're both kind of up in the air. It's first game of the season. It's a big rivalry from back in the day. I can't wait to watch it. And I'm definitely rooting for West Virginia right alongside you, Joey.
Shoot or text. You wasn't in here then either, was you? So.
Yeah, I'm definitely pulling for West Virginia. I'll take the points. I mean, if they're favoring Pitt right now, I'll take the points and take West Virginia actually to win. But it will be, it's the game I'm going to watch of all these games. That's really the one I want to see. I know everybody's talking about Notre Dame, Ohio State, but give me the backyard brawl. And I think I think defense will be a big factor. I think Stills and the guys are going to pull it together, and I think they're going to have a few really close 4th and short where Pitt goes for it, and it'll be a momentum thing. So I look for West Virginia to win that one.
Yeah, the West Virginia is plus 250 if you take them to straight up win. If you take West Virginia to straight up win, it's 250. Tim, I know what your thoughts are on it. Slim Shady.
Wait, ahead, what do you mean? What are my thoughts, Joey?
Well, because you and I have talked about this. You and I have talked about this 3 times in the last 4 days.
Well, I'm gonna say it for the 5th time, Joey. Before this season, and spending all this time on Gold and Blue, dude, I would have probably said it's gonna be a dogfight, but I still would take West Virginia straight up. But after being a Gold and Blue dude disciple, I'm saying that that West Virginia is going to win by 41. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm not saying that at all. I am saying the fact that I think with the Keith Mesidor, I think I would be a lot more comfortable. If you guys can get to Slovis, that's going to be the key. If you can get pressure on Slovis, then it's a win for West Virginia. If he has time to pass, then I'd worry, Joey. But I'm still taking West Virginia to win straight up.
Well, the key's going to be, is like you say, we've got to get the Slovis, and we've got the defensive players to do that. But they've got a pretty good offensive line returning. They returned their whole offensive line and their whole defensive line, and as do we. But they have a little bit more experience on offensive line than we do. Slim Shady, what did you think about the backyard brawl?
Yeah, I've kind of gone back and forth on this. On paper, Pitt's the more talented team. But unfortunately for West Virginia, I do think this is going to come down to who gets to the quarterback. And it's a whole lot easier to get to JT Daniels because he has cinder blocks for feet. And I have absolutely no faith in him staying healthy because nobody's yet to see it in his college career. Not saying he's going to necessarily go down in this game, but he didn't finish the Clemson game to start last year either. So that's not out of the realm of possibility. I mean, I'd like to see West Virginia win it because Pitt fans get on my nerves sometimes, but I just don't see it.
Now, Dante Stills for West Virginia, his dad, Gary Stills, played for West Virginia, and he's the second leading sacker in the history of West Virginia. I don't remember how many sacks he had, but his son now, Dante, needs 9 sacks this year to time, or 8 sacks to time, 9 sacks to pass him. So he has said that he would love to have him right here in the backyard brawl. Of course, that's probably not going to happen, but he's fired up and ready to go, and he understands what the backyard brawl means to him. Now, he's a preseason Big 12 All-American, so he's ready to go. So I'm looking forward to that. They'll have to double team him, either with a running back or something. So if we can get him free, or if they've got to concentrate on him and put a couple of people on him, it might free somebody else up. Maybe we can keep some pressure on Slovis and slow him down a little bit there.
There's a misconception, Slim. You brought up the fact that JT has concrete feet, but he's not. It's definitely not a dual threat quarterback. He's not a threat to pick up 20 yards on a scrambling third down play. But he really he has a good pocket presence. And what people don't realize is if you're a pocket quarterback, you slide, you step up in the pocket. And I think that he does that better than Slovis. Both of them do it well, actually. But if I were to give that nod, it would probably go to JT for that pocket presence and be able to move in the pocket to extend plays. Neither one's going to pick up anything with their feet. But one thing also remember is they brought up the durability of JT. Slovis was hurt often at USC as well. Matter of fact, if I were to say it, JT had the more significant injury, but it just seemed like Slovis had 3 or 4 injuries in the year and a half that he was a starting quarterback. So I don't know. It's as far as injuries concerned, I think either one of them can get knocked out at any moment because both of them haven't shown durability.
Right, and I get that point, but the point I was making is in the 4 years JT Daniels has been in college, I don't think he's put together a full 12 games yet.
Has it been only 4 years? I thought it was like 6 or 7 at this point.
Well, it might be.
This will be his 4th year, correct?
He's got 2 years of eligibility left. So,
but yeah, so I think you got that. Well, but here, realize this, guys. He was knocked out for an entire year and a half of his career. So that was that ACL. So that's a big part of it. He came back and didn't win the job back from Stetson Bennett. So it wasn't because of injury he didn't finish that season last year. So I mean, again, yeah, there's clearly some injury worries with both quarterbacks, including JT. But if anybody saw the way that that Fresno State line collapsed onto his knee, no one's knee is gonna, the Man of Steel himself's knee ACL would have broken on that one. So I mean, it's not like he's injury prone. That injury there was gonna happen to anybody who got smashed like that. But anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Yeah,
did you just say it would smash my knee too?
What do you have?
Well,
did you just say it would smash my knee as well, the Man of Steel?
That's correct, sir.
Okay, just making sure.
And I mean, I get the point that you're making, but I mean, also look at him at Georgia. He couldn't stay healthy enough to consistently play there either.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with his career that much at Georgia as far as the injuries. I know he had like early in the season, he had like an oblique or something. I don't know what the other injuries might have been, but I'm just speaking to that knee, and I mean, you're right. It's clearly he's not staying healthy, but was it more than the 2 injuries? Because my understanding was he could have come back in a season last year with that whatever injury he got early in the year, but that I guess they give Stetson Bennett the nod toward down the stretch. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, he could have came back after week 3.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a point of contention with Georgia fans what was going on with all that. But I mean, I don't know. I'm not, no team doctor or nothing. I'm just That's the information I have to go off of.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, now, and Golden Voodoo's touched on this itself, that West Virginia has a pretty good history of keeping quarterbacks healthy. We do have a pretty good history of that. If you go all the way back, you can think about Will Greer, who broke a pinky. Before that, Gino never got hurt. Mark Poulter didn't get hurt. I can go all the way back to Jeff Hostetler, and there was no injury. So we've had a pretty good history of keeping quarterbacks healthy. Pat White suffered an ankle sprain one time, but look at the way he ran. So that's kind of on him. So I'm gonna let you guys tell me what game you want to talk about. I mean, I've touched on a lot of these. I'm wondering. There's a game that's intriguing me because I want to know what TCU is going to do this year, and that's TCU and Colorado. That game's Friday night. Colorado's no good. TCU's supposed to not be very good. TCU's a 13.5-point favorite. I want to see it because I want to see if TCU, under a new coaching staff, can do any better than they did under Gary Patterson. Because I think Gary Patterson was a great coach. I think they made a mistake firing him.
Yeah, I would have to assume the defense is going to get worse. I don't know much about TCU, but you lose someone like Patterson, your defense. I mean, unless you bring someone in and equally as well, the defense is probably going to take a hit. But to be fair, I don't really know much about TCU this year.
Yeah, I'm not educated enough to speak on that game.
Gentlemen, I have a prior commitment, so I'm going to have to drop out. Joey, thanks for having me in. Isn't it wonderful that we can start actually talking about games that we're about ready to watch? I mean, how great is that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Good health to everybody. Have a great evening, gentlemen.
Take care, J-Dub.
See you.
I'm like you guys. I'm a Big 12 guy, and I really couldn't tell you much about TCU this year. It's really a mystery to me. So, but I'm looking through these games. I don't see a lot of games that are going to be Houston and Texas San Antonio. Houston's a 4-point favorite in that game.
Now, Joey,
I don't see that game being that close.
Can I touch on a game that I think might be interesting? Is North Carolina and App State. Now, I think that could actually be. I mean, what is it? Basically a pick 'em now, isn't it?
Half a point. UNC's favored by half a point.
Yeah. Now I'm not a hater on UNC, but I got a soft spot for App State as I used to spend some time up there. That could be a really exciting game tomorrow or on Saturday, right? Saturday game. That's one I'm interested in.
I will say this: App State has had success with dual threat quarterbacks, and Bryce Chase, the kid that went from Clemson to Duke, went from Duke to App State, is not a dual threat quarterback. Carolina gave up 2.1 yards per rush against Florida A&M, and it's Florida A&M, and everybody's been saying how they were down 25 players, but they don't talk about that only 3 of them were from the 2 deep. The rest were freshmen. If Carolina can stop the run, the App State, that quarterback cannot beat them through the air. He throws a ton of interceptions. If Carolina can't stop the run, and just about every starter on App State's line is 6-year starter, if Carolina can't get the run defense going, then it's definitely going to be a shootout.
Yeah, Carolina.
Could be interesting.
This game's got me nervous as any game Carolina's played in 3 years.
Anytime you play App State, you got to be nervous.
And going to App State.
And I'll say this, and this isn't any slight at North Carolina, but they really embarrassed themselves with that FAMU game. That really was. I mean, FAMU's offense having that much success against North Carolina's defense, which was supposed to be their strong suit this year, that's not a good look.
Can I ask one question? Did you watch the whole game?
I watched the majority of it and then went back and watched the highlights later.
So everything that FAMU was doing was 3-step drops, get the ball out really quick. All their skill receiver guys are super fast. And if you watched the part of the game that had the full 22 view going, Carolina played base, cover 2. They didn't show anything exotic. I think they only blitzed like 4 times the whole game. And anytime Musa took more than 3-step drop, he was under pressure. They ended up getting 3 sacks on him. I mean, people are dogging Carolina for giving up 24 points, and yeah, they did give up some passing yards. But, you know, the other team is Division I athletes too, and they had a good game plan, and the way they attacked Carolina worked with the underneath passing and the really quick passing game, and not every team in the country has the skill players with the speed to do that. So I take it.
And I get the point that you're making, but FAMU's talent is not even in the same ballpark as North Carolina's talent, and that was a 1-score game going into the fourth quarter.
Well, I agree.
Yeah.
I'll tell you the game I'm looking forward to this weekend, and you guys will laugh, but I think this game has bowl implications. I think Boston College and Rutgers. And I know everybody laughs that Rutgers sucks, but they're going to be better this year, and they almost made a bowl last year. And Boston College was 6-6 last year, so I really think that could be a real fun game to watch.
Yeah, Boston College is 7-point favorite in that game, and now North Carolina is a 1.5-point favorite over App State. I'm gonna tell you, FAMU had a lot of players out in that game, and I realized that North Carolina played more or less in a prevent style, just hoping for the best. They wasn't going to show everything they had, but I just think that App State's going to beat you. I do. I just think App State's going to beat North Carolina.
Here now, TF and Joey. Here's the problem with all of that, right? Every step that App State starts taking towards, like, you know, legitimacy and being up and being a Division I big boy, right? That takes away from our ability to make fun of Ferris and One Scoop John, all of the Michigan fans. You know, it takes away from that clip we get to play and just have a little bit of fun with it, you know? So we got to be guarded here. You know, do we want to let App State out of that? Because then we let Michigan off the hook. So
well, people forget. Well, there's a difference, though. People forget that Michigan was a top 5 team when App State beat them. And
they're number 1.
And App State was still Division II when they beat them. Now, granted, they won. They won like what?
Let the Michigan fans forget either. So no,
exactly. And if I'm not mistaken, wasn't that when App State was in the middle of their run of winning like 6 titles in a row?
So to be fair, some of those FCS schools at the top are clearly better than some of the FBS teams at the bottom. I mean, we all know that, you know. And
yes,
I and relegate, but still.
Yes, I absolutely agree with that. I think North Dakota State would come out and slap Kansas around like they were nothing.
I have to say, this year Kansas is going to be a lot better than we are expecting. Be really honest with you. They got that new coach. They got a whole new system, and they dang near beat Oklahoma. And Oklahoma is not great, but man, they ain't that bad.
Well, here's the only question I have about Kansas. Have they gotten their whole roster situation figured out from that coach right before Les Miles?
No.
Because that dude had that roster so jacked up with transfers and JUCOs, and
that's really what has been the key to their defeat every year is the lack of talent, the lack of recruiting, you know, and then losing just makes it worse. So actually the COVID year and the new COVID rules did help a lot. So they jumped a few years ahead, but they're still probably 2-3 years behind in recruiting where they should be for a Power 5 program for sure.
Well, and last year, didn't they only have 61 scholarship players?
They did not even have a full roster of scholarship players last year. Yeah, so they are still trying to recover from what that dude did. I can't remember his name right now. But, hey, going back to that other game, Joey, you were talking about TCU. They hired Sonny Dykes, who is a offensive guy. So it kind of compounds what we've been talking about. There's going to be a big drop-off in defense. We all know that. But I think that Colorado game might be one of the ones they win because I don't think Colorado's got a very good defense. And I think Sonny Dykes is going to be able to slice and dice that defense. So it could be one of those kind of high-scoring shootout games. Whoever has the ball last wins. Or it could be that, Sonny Dykes can roll on Colorado just outscoring, putting up 40, 50 points. So
yeah, Sonny Dykes comes from that Mike Leach tree.
Yeah, he's SMU, and he likes to sling the ball a lot.
I've got an interesting game, and I want to hear some people's takes on this. A lot of people are writing off Penn State because of the record last year, but that was a top 10 team before that quarterback got hurt. And I really think with what Purdue has, that's an interesting game, in my opinion.
I agree, Slash. I think that could be a really good game as well. That's why I'll enjoy watching it.
Yeah, we had talked about that game earlier, and I think Penn State will pull it out. But I was saying, I could just see that game being so close. I think there's a 3-point spread. Let me look. 3.5 point spread on that game. Where do you go with that? Because I really believe it's going to be a really close game. So, but I have Penn State pulling it out.
I got a game.
Oh, go ahead, Packer.
I got a game that on paper, everybody's saying NC State's going to challenge Clemson, and NC State may be the best team in the ACC, if not the second best team, and they go to ECU this weekend. And earlier, y'all were talking about rivalry games, and I don't know that a lot of people around the country understand the amount of hate between NC State and East Carolina. But I'll give you a little history. Back in 1987, East Carolina went to Raleigh and beat NC State. And when they did, they rushed the field, tore NC State's goalpost down, and carried it down Hillsborough Street. And it made Jim Valvano, who was the AD at State, so mad at the time that he swore State would never play East Carolina again. Then 6 or 7 years later, they met in the Peach Bowl in Atlanta, and ECU smoked them again. And then 7 years after that, Hurricane Floyd came through, and ECU was supposed to host number 9 Miami in Greenville, but because of the hurricane, they didn't have a stadium to play in. So NC State said, hey, y'all come play in Raleigh, invite number 9 Miami. Y'all play your home game here. We'll even let you paint the field blue and purple, or purple and gold. And sure enough, ECU beat number 9 Miami and tore State's goalpost down again. And I think ECU's won the last 3 in Greenville. So State's favored by 14 points, and I'm not calling for an ECU upset, but I guarantee you they cover.
Never underestimate a Pirate.
I'll tell you what my thoughts are on that game. So East Carolina, NC State's defensive coordinator is Tony Gibson. Tony Gibson was under Jeff Castile at West Virginia during the Rich Rod era, and then he became our defensive coordinator when Holgerson was coach, and he was our defensive coordinator. Now he's at NC State, but I can remember back, we used to play East Carolina every once in a while, and they would go up against that Tony Gibson defense, and I don't remember them ever scoring more than 12 points. 12 points is most I've ever seen them score against West Virginia. So, now that was a long time ago, so it really doesn't make a difference right now. But the NC State is 11.5 point favorite, and I think that line's low. I think I would make NC State a 14-point favorite myself.
Well, here's my problem with that. If Dave Dorn has shown us anything at his time at NC State, is he's going to squander every opportunity possible. That man is – I don't think he's yet to put 2 8-9 win seasons back to back since he's been at NC State. And until he does so, I've really got no reason to think he's going to.
Hey, Joey, I got to bounce, man. I got some company just walked in, but I appreciate you. I appreciate you having me on here, man. And I will. I'll be talking to you soon.
All right, TF. Thanks for coming in, man. Appreciate it.
All right, guys. We'll see all y'all later. All right.
So another interesting game that I'm looking at too on here, Boise State and Oregon State. We didn't talk about that game, and Oregon State's a 3-point favorite. That's going to be a really good game. That's going to be a game that I'm going to be very interested in. Oregon State and Boise State, a game that normally wouldn't intrigue me, but this year it does.
I think Oregon State's got that game. I think they win and cover. I think Oregon State's going to be a lot better this year than people think.
Yeah.
Doesn't that just seem weird to say? I mean, it's Oregon State. I'm used to them being like Kansas level bad.
Well, Oregon State's
not
better than you
necessarily,
think.
No, yeah.
I just think Oregon State's going to be a better team than anybody's giving them credit for this year. And any team can catch lightning in a bottle one time.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, Jonathan Smith starting his fifth year there. Yeah, Jonathan Smith starting his fifth year at Oregon State. And again, a lot like Cristobal did. He didn't have the 5-star talent, but he has some big dudes up there then, and they're all, fourth and fifth year guys this year. I'll tell you this, last year was probably the worst USC defense I've ever seen in my life. But that said, they were able to manhandle us in the Coliseum. I don't know if you guys remember, but Jonathan Smith was their quarterback years back, and he's got a great offensive mind. They had a lot of misdirection in that game, and just it looked like the linebackers were on skates. So are they a great team? No. Are they even a top 25 team? Marginally. I could see them maybe squeak into the top 25 at some point this season. They have some tough games. If you looked at USC's schedule this year, I think that there's a strong possibility we might trip up. If we are going to trip up early, it's probably going to be up in Corvallis, because Corvallis is a pretty tough place to play. It's a very small stadium. But again, they've got those Pacific Northwest fans are the closest you're going to get to Midwest and SEC caliber fan bases as far as just how loud and crazy they are. So they are a team to be taken seriously. Will a top 10 team need to worry about them? Probably not. But I wouldn't dismiss them. I do think that Jonathan Smith is building something up there.
Yeah.
And one more thing,
well,
sorry.
Guys, I'm going to make an announcement. Oh, go ahead, Tim. I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, I like to remind people whenever they smash on Washington State and Oregon State, unfortunately, there were two teams that Pete Carroll just somehow lose to, and it was Washington State and Oregon State. And it wasn't, it wasn't SEC, it wasn't the Big Ten, it wasn't people in bowl games. It was those dudes. So those kids come to play. And back in the day, they had good coaches with Mike Price and I forget his name, Riley. What was his name? Anyone remember? He was a Chargers coach for a while, with Nebraska coach. Riley. Anyway, I can't think who it was. They had some. They had this guy Jonathan Smith. I think you got to keep an eye on him. If it wasn't his alma mater, I bet you he would have moved on by now. So yeah, it'll be interesting.
So I want to make an announcement real quick to let everybody know that Golden Blue Dude's traveling up to West Virginia. He's on his way, and to go to the Backyard Brawl tomorrow. And so if he gets up here in time, he said he'd like to go live later on tonight for a little while to discuss the Backyard Brawl and a couple other games tomorrow night. So just keep an eye out. If you've got your bell notification on, Golden Blue Dude will be live later, hopefully. If not, he will definitely go live tomorrow from the Backyard Brawl. And I think I'll wrap this show up and give everybody a chance here to give it a last word and getting ready for tomorrow's football game. Slim Shady, you want to go first?
I ain't got a lot. I think we kind of covered the gambit, so I guess I'll just go ahead and hop out and bid y'all a good evening.
Thank you for being here, Slim Shady. Appreciate you coming in.
Yes, sir.
Tim, you want to give your final thoughts, everybody? And Tim, be sure and shout out your show tonight. I know you've got a big show tonight. You're muted again, Tim.
My bad. Sorry. Yeah, I put in the chat. Hope you don't mind. Yeah, we're having our first Pac-12 a preview show. We're going to try to preview the Pac-12 games and maybe do a quick review next week. But we're just looking around. You have Pigskin Pete's got a great ACC show. You don't have to look anywhere. You can throw a rock and hit a great SEC show online. So we thought it's time we give all the Pac-12 orphans a place to come and hang out. But we're welcoming everybody, because the fact is again, Georgia's playing Oregon this week, and Utah's going to be playing the Gators. So, we're welcoming all fan bases to come in, talk smack, talk football. One thing we do know, we'll have fun. It'll be a call-in show, so people can call in and join in. So we'd appreciate any support you guys can give us. And again, I'm just really looking forward to the games Thursday and this weekend. So enjoy yourselves. I'll see you guys all later, hopefully.
Tim, I know you're not feeling well, so I hope you get feeling better. Thanks for coming in, and go take care of that voice, man.
Yeah, I will. All right. Thanks, man.
Thanks. Packer 910.
First thing, I just want to thank you for letting me get on here and have a voice. My wife's tired of hearing me yell at the TV. But, you know, everybody's down on Carolina and because they gave up 24 points to FAMU. And I'll just say this. We definitely could lose Saturday at App State. I hope we don't. I really don't think we will, but we could. And if we do, I'll be around for y'all to pick on and kick on next week. But all I got to say is this. Praise the Lord and pass the popcorn. Next week, we can talk about what happened, not what might happen. And I'm so grateful that college football is back. Y'all have a good night.
Thanks, Packer. Thanks for being here, man. Appreciate it. Jeff, thank you for coming in with me there on short notice, buddy. I appreciate you jumping right on with me.
Hey, man, anytime. For my last word, I want you to talk just a few minutes and tell people about the Patreon. We got that pick this weekend. And then also, I know we've been doing Thursday night with the Patreon show that you do, but since the game's tomorrow, what day are we going to do the Patreon show? Do you know?
Hold on 1 second, Jeff. I'm checking on something here. Go ahead and keep talking for me if you would.
All right. Yeah, everybody.
I'm sorry, Jeff. You there, Jeff? Are you muted? I think we lost you, Jeff.
Did I get muted? Okay, how's this? This better?
There you are. There you're back, yeah.
Okay. No, I was just saying with the Patreons, if you hurry up and sign up, every week they do a prediction. And for every $1 that you donate to Patreon, you get 1 pick. So if you do $5, you get 5 picks a week. If you do $10, you get 10 picks a week. And the winner gets $20. Plus, Joey Foster puts on a really good show. He has special guests in that. So if you do join Patreon, you get a lot of perks. And I tell everybody to do it.
Yeah, and I normally do my show on Thursday night. And, of course, I'll be up at the game tomorrow night. So I won't have a show tomorrow night, but we will have a show Friday night on Patreon for everybody. And hopefully it's a celebration of a win for West Virginia.
So we're either going to celebrate or drink, right?
Right. So today is the last day that you can get entered in for our drawings this month, too, that were donated by Traveling Fools. So anybody that made a super chat this month, you're going to be in a drawing for a trail cam. And anybody that made a purchase from our store this month, we'll have a drawing for a pair of night vision binoculars. We'll have those drawings. Well, tomorrow's the backyard brawl, so we'll probably do the drawings Friday. But we won't accept no more after today, no more entries. So anybody that super chatted up through today, so Golden Blue will go live later, hopefully. You have another chance to super chat. Or you can also send in a super chat through PayPal or however you want to do it if you want to get a chance to win on the trail cam. If you want a chance to win the night vision binoculars, be sure and go over to your store and make a purchase. It doesn't matter what you buy. There's a couple of things we've got on sale, the GBD Nation items. So if you look, those are really reduced prices. So you can pick you up a t-shirt for well below what it normally costs. So, all right, Jeff, we appreciate you coming in. Guys, we appreciate everybody in the chat for being here. And like I say, Golden Blue Dude should be live later on. Everyone have a good night and happy football. Let's get ready.
See you later,
Let's go
guys.
Mountaineers.